Cardano is going to absolutely take over. I think none of you will be surprised when I say that, because there's actually the founder of Cardano itself who says the exact same thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, here is Charles Hoskinson, who himself said this: Cardano will become the world's biggest cryptocurrency. He predicted that Cardano is set to eclipse market leaders like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and he said so recently at the Rare Evo Day 1. Now, it was a little bit of a longer section, but the summary is as follows. He made an audacious prediction that Cardano will overtake Bitcoin and ETH, becoming the world's largest crypto. Currently, the crypto space is basically moving sideways, with one of the only exceptions here being XRP, and an ever so slight green. Cardano is actually down 0.17% at 26.03 cents, number 7 spot. And at the same time, by the way, he's been shouting this. The Cardano founder says the SEC is not after us. ADA only caught in crossfire losses. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So how can Cardano do this when right now they're at about $9 billion, far behind Bitcoin's 506 and behind Ethereum's almost $200 billion, as it'd basically be about a 25 or so X for ADA to get to Ethereum, or more than a 50 or even 60X to get to Bitcoin. Apparently, a cornerstone of his argument is Cardano's commitment to on-chain governance, a decentralized form of decision-making that directly involves the community. Quote, so that is our challenge, and this is why I think that Cardano is probably going to become the biggest cryptocurrency in the world. I think that it's going to become more than just a cryptocurrency. I think it's going to become the backbone of a new digital nation, a new society, a place where we can finally begin to trust each other again, where we move from don't be evil to can't be evil, Hoskinson said. He aimed his criticism at the governance models of market leaders like Bitcoin and Ethereum. He could point out that Bitcoin's static design, unchanged from its inception from like 13 years ago, could be its Achilles heel in the long term. Ethereum's leadership dismissed on-chain governance as unachievable, but Hoskinson argued that as crypto platforms mature and accumulate users in the hundreds of millions, not employing some form of on-chain governance could become a massive liability. The Cardano founder also tackled apprehensions surrounding decentralized governments, which some view as disruptive to established systems. For Hoskinson, however, this form of governance could be a tool for renewed community engagement and trust. He expressed his faith in human potential, saying that he has always believed in the best in people. Well, I mean, I like to say that. I can't say I always believed, but I try to see the best in people and sees decentralized governance as a way to restore that trust. Again, this all follows the principle of can't be evil rather than do not be evil that we have in our current systems. Currently, the whole notion is always like, hey, everybody has power to do something bad, but you shouldn't do it, all right? Don't do that. In these, I guess, hypothetical or not so hypothetical anymore scenarios, you just can't do bad. Or at least you cannot do detrimentally bad. You can always try to act bad, but not, I guess, have full option anymore. Achieving this mantle of the world's largest crypto would require Cardano to not only significantly scale its user base, but also to navigate a complex web of regulatory and technical challenges. As reported by You Today, Hoskinson recently denied that the US SEC is behind him, or rather I should say going after them, and he specifically said they've just been in the whole crosshairs because of lawsuits against Binance and Coinbase. They've just been caught in the crossfire, even though they've not really been doing anything wrong. And to elaborate upon that ever so slightly, the interviewer, Corey Costa, asked Hoskinson why the SEC comes after prominent blockchains like Cardano, and Hoskinson argued from a different angle that it was incorrect to say the SEC was coming after Cardano itself. Hoskinson clarified that the appearance of ADA in the lawsuit against Coinbase and Binance does not imply Cardano was under any scrutiny. In his words, quote, it's very important to be accurate with our language. There's no coming after Cardano. Just because in a lawsuit against some exchange, they say that something is a security, does not mean that it is. There's been no enforcement event against Cardano itself. Moreover, Hoskinson stated that if ADA were indeed a target, the SEC lawsuit would have taken a different approach. He remarked, if that occurred, the facts and circumstances would be different, but that's not the case for us. He then goes on to explain that this whole SEC attack is mostly just political rather than actually following the proper laws. And we've basically been seeing that in the Ripple case too, where the SEC always has the chance to follow and be on the right side of the law. But they do not want to. They want to go for the most destructive method possible, it seems. And then he kind of points out to Sam Bankman-Fried giving out a lot of money to all these politicians. So these guys have some bias potentially. Anyway, he also mentioned that the US political class went from a bipartisan environment to one heavily critical of crypto, highlighting the shift from wanting to pass crypto laws to one where all crypto actors are like criminals. Meanwhile, he noted the political class is merely taking herding actions to cover up their misdeeds and show authority. And I agree with that for the most part. Hoskinson criticized the impact of the actions on entrepreneurs, job creation, and competitiveness, quote, is just fantasy. All they're doing is hurting one of the great emergent industries in the US. They're basically offshoring a large amount of great entrepreneurs who are creating jobs and creating competitiveness. To which I'd like to state I fully agree with Charles Hoskinson by stating, these guys at the SEC, they're not doing the proper job, and all they're doing is making sure the people inside the US are not making proper money. It's as simple as that. All they had to do was get some proper rules down, but they do not want to. All they had to do was completely outlaw it or something, but they won't do that. If they just make sure things were clear, even though they were bad, people could move on, continue to make money, continue to innovate. But for some reason, they want to make sure it's as vague as possible so that you dabble into these shady practices because, again, there's no regulation really. So you either lose your money or you have to do very shady stuff around the world somewhere because you don't really know what's allowed and what's not allowed, yada, yada, yada. And that led me to one simple question that I think a lot of you guys must be having. What do I think of the Cardano price eventually? Where am I seeing that one head towards? And the answer is pretty simple. Charles Hoskinson said Cardano was going to be a $1 trillion cryptocurrency. And I personally still see it from that perspective of saying, hey, they're behind, very significantly behind Ethereum, but they're playing the catch-up game, right? The fact that they're still in the top 10 right now, even though the progression has been rather slow, says so much. And I should add to that. Let me explain. The progression for Cardano has been slow from the perspective that it's been around for such a long time, but they've gone for the philosophical approach, the peer-reviewed approach of let's think things out properly before going for it. That means they're not the first to innovate most of the time with crazy new ideas, crazy stupid technology, so to speak, but they're the ones to take whatever works from other perspectives and make sure it works well to the best of its ability to basically get to the newer digital financial future. Which is an approach that I think is the best. It's rigorous, it's properly tested, and, well, it's mostly resilient for the longer times. It has longevity. From that perspective, Cardano and Charles and whatever should be ranked very, very high because of longevity. Same thing to point out that Ethereum, it has flaws as we really get towards mass adoption. We see it in every bull market, the massive bottlenecking. On the contrary, we always have to point out the negatives here. The only problem with Cardano is that because of the way they do things, it's a little bit slower and it has to play a lot of catch up. But the fact that it's in the top 10, it's actually number 7 here, even though they've been behind for so long and are only now starting to play catch up, that says a lot, right? And the fact that they've been mentioned by the SEC, even though it's not directly against them and it's still saying so high, yeah, these things all add up and it all adds for the faith and the continued support in the ecosystem for Cardano. And yeah, it has one of the most tight communities in terms of developers, some of the most active. And so in a bull run, it's mostly not based upon hype. A lot is based upon kind of like a Tesla stock based on what they plan to achieve to do. Not necessarily from a hypey perspective, but from a revolutionary perspective. People also like the founder, people also like the environment. And so from that perspective, I would not be too surprised if indeed we eventually get to those $25 marks and actually get towards the $1 trillion mark in terms of market cap. Again, we're talking eventually following Charles Hoskinson's thoughts and ideas. But really, if you kind of compare it to where crypto is about to head, let's just hypothetically speak and say this is heading to a $100 trillion market. That puts the entire market 100 times as high. Don't you think crypto is going to get 100 times as big as it is today? I don't know. That easily puts it at 1 trillion already. But even then, I do believe they can overtake a significant portion of Ethereum's market cap. So even if we just put the crypto space at 50 times bigger than it is right now, I think Cardano relatively will double in terms of dominance, leading it to indeed, again, that $25 price mark or that $1 trillion market cap mark is just not that crazy if you were to ask me. Is it certainly going to happen? No, never say certain, and of course, I'm not your financial advisor, but I am personally pretty damn bullish on Cardano. And yeah, you can just see the founder also being quite excited, and I just wanted to quickly share that. Just some exciting news about Cardano, because, I don't know, I've been feeling good about it recently. On-chain activity on Cardano is looking pretty damn good recently, and just things are looking pretty nice for Cardano. Let me know down below if you're still holding this crypto.